Hello again, everyone. It's good to have you with us for this event. It figures to be an exceptional one that doesn't need any build-up.
Are you ready?
Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop fighting.
This is the main event of the evening.
Athletes, huddle up. It's time to begin. Get focused. Let's go.
Athletes, take your mark. Get set. It's time for the Addict to Athlete podcast. Everybody out there, Coach Blue Robinson here. Thank you so much for downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. Dang, we greatly appreciate you doing so. Jump on, leave us a review. It helps get the message out there a little bit further and helps us kind of connect with you, the listener. Athletes, as we approach this summer months, which we're all so happy to be having on the horizon, jump on addicttoathlete.org. You'll find all of our backlog podcast content there for you. Shoot, all kinds of great tips and info on how to kind of get that starting line of sobriety going. And to plug our races, we have two great events. The first one, the No One Left Behind race. It's a team half marathon. It's going to be a great experience. Hopefully, with all the summer runoff, we don't have to change our course, but you never know. But check it out, addictathlete.org. Underneath our race registration, you can jump on there, register a team. We'd love to have you guys come out and participate in this. It's a great experience to have anyone who's never ran a half marathon to kind of show them the ropes. It's a team effort, so you're only as fast as your slowest runner, but you get to have a great experience and probably an amazing journey in the middle of that. But nonetheless, check it out, addictathlete.org. Athletes, today we got a guest on our show, one that's been on here years ago. We were trying to decipher how long it's been. I think probably at the very beginning of this podcast when we launched in 2015 to an episode that's probably gone to the ethos now because of a changing in platform. But we've got my right-hand man, our coach in arms here in Utah County, Coach Jed Jensen. Welcome officially back to the podcast, brother.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a long time if it's been before 2015.
Can you believe that? Like it's funny when you look back and now we have the I remember when stories.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember when a lot of stories.
It's pretty funny. For you listeners that have been with us for a while, and if you've ever participated in any team Addict to Athlete adventure, Coach Jensen's been at the helm of most of that. And realistically, if we didn't have Coach Jensen along for the ride, we probably wouldn't have Addict to Athlete at the point that it is today. You're a huge influence to this team. You've kept it afloat when things got a little thin. You're sitting now in our studio, in our own location, at this home base. And as you kind of look back, brother, did you ever think we'd ever make it this far?
Honestly, I never thought. I guess I better get a little bit closer. Honestly, I never thought that we'd actually get to this point. If we were to get to this point, I didn't think that it would happen as soon as it did. I was honestly thinking that we'd be 20 years down the road.
Yeah.
Somebody just may walk by and just, oh, you guys deserve this after all these years, and just kind of gift us a spot. I didn't think it was going to happen year 10.
Yeah, we're lucky.
Even after COVID and everything, when everything started to seem like it was going downhill for a lot of people, things started looking up for us, and just holding on and keeping a good spirit about everything, and keeping our heads up helped us out quite a bit on getting here.
Absolutely. Coach, again, like I said, you are the right hand to this is like a robot that we've built here. If it wasn't for you, there wouldn't be a lot of what's happened. You're a go-getter. You're the kind of guy that sees something, kind of envisions it, and then follows through to make it happen. We've done a lot of events that have kind of followed that same pattern, if you think about it, from our county to county, our break the cycle relays, right down to some of the stuff that we do here. I'm kind of curious. Let's get a little bit of listenership background, because again, this podcast that we had with you was so long ago. I think it's way deep in the archives. Why don't you give the listeners a little bit of a overview on you, how we came to meet, and then let's go to that vision type mindset, because really a lot of the stuff that's here you've kind of created.
Oh, let's see. I met you back in, I think I tracked it down to 2015 or 6. No, it wasn't 2015. 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Or 2006. I was in Utah County Drug Court, felony drug court. I was in there for multiple different charges, and I also pushed it to the limit, and I was there for 2 years straight. Mm-hmm. back then you weren't even a therapist. I don't know if you were even thinking about being a therapist.
I was a drug and alcohol counselor. Yeah.
And I remember sitting in your class and, well, even just some of the individuals I had with you, I remember sitting in there and you talking about running, talking about exercise, and Addict Athlete was, it wasn't a thought back then, but it was a thought at the same time.
It was on the radar. Yeah.
I mean, I remember you talking so much about going out exercising, running marathons, doing this, doing that. And back then I was just thinking you're crazy. I just wanted to get done with our little meeting that we were having so I could get back out.
Move on.
Be the person I was back then. I really wasn't the most innocent or the most forthcoming person back then. I had a lot of secrets that I like to hide from people, and eventually that caught up to me, and I still don't know to this day how I actually graduated drug court. Somebody must have they must have felt bad for me and just told me to get out of there. And
they were like done. They're done with you, huh?
From there, me and Dusty Oberg kind of kept in contact with you throughout the years, and we went and spoke at a couple places. And even when I relapsed back on hard drugs, I kind of kept in contact with you. And I was always struggling. I always had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to get clean. I did not know how to get clean at the time. And come 2011, and I think it was maybe August, somewhere in there, I remember hearing that you were back at the Utah County Health and Justice Building. You know, I walked over, I went to talk with you, and you were doing night treatment at the time. And I remember telling you that I got in trouble, that I wanted to get clean, I wanted to do this, wanted to do that. And at that point, Addict Athlete was going, and I didn't know about it. And I remember talking with you in there, and I don't remember how the exact conversation went. And you told me to get handled what I needed to get handled and get back and get in class and start doing better. Well, from there, yeah, I went back and I started getting stuff handled, just the wrong type of stuff. And
right.
On November 19th, 2011, and I got in a fight with my old man. And it was kind of a push and shove fight, and I took off walking. The police got called on me, and I was over at a cemetery, and I looked across the street. I saw the cops were there, and I'm not exactly sure why I decided to walk back over to that house. But I walked back over knowing the cops were there, and I still had the paraphernalia and everything on me. I got over there. I got tackled by the cops yet again. I got searched. I got more charges. And I got put in jail. And the reason why I was around my dad that day is I called my dad earlier that morning, and I told my dad I wanted to go to Foothill. I wanted to go to treatment. I called down. I had a bed. I had everything set up. And I wanted to shower when my dad came and picked me up. It was probably a couple of weeks since I showered at the time. I was homeless. I was living on the street, and I actually think I woke up on the backside of a porta potty that day.
Nice.
Hey, I can't remember exactly where I was, but I remember I had a bed at Foothill, and he told me to shower. He told me not to worry about eating. I could eat when I got down there. I was coming down off of different drugs at the time, and I was just hungry, and we got in an argument, and everything went from there. Cops got called. I got arrested, and I got put down in jail. November 19th was right before Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting down there thinking, all right, Kay, my bail is $125. Somebody's going to come get me. No matter who it is, somebody's going to come get me. I'm not going to sit in here very long. That $125 kept me in there for 6 months.
Wow.
I ended up having to serve part of my sentence at the time. But yeah, I ended up sitting in there. And I learned a lot of stuff when I was in jail that time.
It's a long time to be in jail, man.
Yeah, it was mostly just I was sitting in jail. I didn't talk to anybody. I just isolated by myself. And
you read a lot.
Oh,
Tell me you read a lot.
I read a whole lot.
Oh.
I read religious books. I read Hunger Games. I read everything, and I just kind of stayed to myself and did my own thing. And probably the best thing I ever did at that point, because I wasn't in there. I wasn't staying in the culture that got me in there. And looking back at it, that little bit of time I was in there, I wasn't in there for quite 6 months, but I got in and out real fast. Went into Foothill Residential. From residential, I graduated. For some reason, my therapist at residential thought I was scary and wanted to meet with me by myself.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Then when I got out of there, I was in pre-entry program, and
that was like a holding tank.
Yeah.
Before you could get into therapy, into IOP treatment, right?
And
yeah.
The cool part about that holding tank was, or pre-entry, whatever it is, was you could wear a hat in there, which you can't wear inside of treatment. And I saw you walk in, and I kind of ducked my head, kind of slooped down to the ground. I knew you were in day treatment then. And I figured maybe you wouldn't see me. I don't know if you saw my name on the roll that day or what. You shared about Addict Athlete. You shared about what it's been doing for everybody. You shared about a program called Addict to Artist. And after you got done, you walked over. You walked right to where I was. You didn't talk to anybody else. You walked over and told me I started treatment that Monday.
Yep.
And I told you no. I got like 2 more weeks, and I go into night treatment. And you argued it out with me and told me no. You start on Monday. I already talked to your parents. Did this, did that. You can't lie to me.
Yep.
And from there I showed up that Monday, and I was never so nervous in my life to show up to treatment.
Yeah.
And it took 2 weeks before I had to introduce myself. I was making friends in there, got to know everybody. And you called me out on a lot of stuff that day, stuff that nobody else knew, because you kept notes from 2005.
Yeah.
And
about 5 years prior to that.
When I was in treatment, I was able to start working on a lot of things I had to let go of, a lot of things I never brought up my previous go around on treatment. And I was able to let go of people that were keeping me down, people that just wanted to use me to get what they needed.
Yeah.
And then as I was sitting in treatment, I started seeing a lot of people come in, a lot of people go out, and I was so nervous about probation and everything. And even in the back of my mind, I remember sitting there thinking, all right, Kay, I can get this done, I can get gone, and I can go back to living my life.
Yeah.
As I was sitting in treatment and doing all this stuff, you started talking a lot more about Addict Athlete, and I didn't want nothing to do with Addict Athlete.
Right.
I was part of the Addict Artist program, and I was enjoying it over there. Well, the Addict Artist program kind of embezzled a little bit of money at the time because it wasn't ran by you.
Yeah.
And
it was an offshoot that they were using the name, but it wasn't under the Addict Athlete name or banner yet.
And after all that happened, I kind of started coming over towards Addict Athlete. One of my friends invited me. I remember going out running my first 5K. And it took me forever that night. I remember looking over thinking, who's this crazy person with a tire on behind them running?
Yeah.
It was Heath.
Yeah.
And I finished that first 5K that night in like 48 minutes. I couldn't walk.
A decent time for your first 3 mile run, Jed.
Yeah, but I couldn't walk going into treatment that next day.
You looked a little sore.
I don't know. I don't know means you don't want to think. But
yep.
As I started doing that, I signed up to go do a 5K. And I went out and did that 5K, and you walked in the one day and asked, okay, who wants to go up to the Salt Lake chapter's kickoff?
Yeah.
And this is always one of my favorite things to remember. And I raised my hand because I didn't want to sit there with Bruce. And we went up there, and you walked over, gave me a shirt. Or I put on a shirt that day, and we went up there, and after we got done, you said, athletes, stand up. Everybody stood up but me. And while I was sitting down, I started getting smacks in the back of the head. So I finally stood up, and everybody looked at me and said, well, you're wearing the shirt, you're an athlete.
Yeah.
And as sick as I was at the time, to me that was relationship building.
Oh, for sure.
And people wanted me to be up there with them. People wanted me standing up with them. So I stood up with them. And I think that was my changing point where I found my place. I found where I wanted to be, and I found people I wanted to role model myself after. I kind of just started to get to know everybody a little bit. Keith Carter, Josh Foster, Wade Hone, Cody Fitzgerald, even Cassie and Sarah, Brandon Buchanan. I kind of took a little bit of everything that I saw that they were doing right, and I started applying it a little bit in my life. I took you are the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Yeah.
And I started applying that in my life. A lot of those guys, they went back out their own ways and this and that after treatment. And
what stuck for you, though? Because I look at that, and I remember like it was yesterday, and I always remember thinking, wow, he's still here. He's still coming. Because, I mean, back then it was so new and so strange. And we have multiple programs like Addict to Athlete now, but we were the first ones out of the gate with this. And I remember being like, I can't believe this is catching on, and that Jed's here. Like, he wants to do this. And when you'd come and you'd show up and you do the runs and stuff, like, why did you start getting so invested in it? Was it the relationships? Was it what was going on? Like, what was it that really kept your attention?
I think the relationships had a lot to do with it. But then at the same time, I think there was a little bit of fear going on. I mean, I had the relationships, I had the friends, I had the community that I could go around, people I could reach out to. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if I stopped coming, who would I have there?
Yeah.
I know we're supposed to build a support system for when we're not in treatment. Mm-hmm. Addict Athlete was that support system for me. So if I stopped doing Addict Athlete, what did I have?
Right.
I mean, I was still very new in my relationship at the time with my wife, and
well, God, you were dating her for a while, and it was kind of a crazy thing. And I remember you and I would go all over the place. We'd go like Price and all over, and we'd talk. Remember, sometimes we'd go do presentations with 2 or 3 people. We'd be like, well, this is the grassroots level stuff. This is all good as my first 1 person or a million. And I remember you really getting invested in it all, man. And I remember just thinking, why? Like, what was it? Was it the leadership? Was it you been able to like flex some muscle you didn't know you had? I mean, was it the team? I mean, can you put your finger on what it was? Or was it all of that? Because you stuck around. And not only stuck around, you invested in it, man. You did the runs. You organized the races. When I got called to serve as a bishop, I remember talking to you and Wade, and I said, the program's in your hands until who knows how long. Can you guys do this? And unanimously, you both said, yeah, we got this. And you did,
I think I wanted to share with others what I was gifted to me. I felt great. I liked what I was doing. I liked who I was around. And I wanted to share with everybody else that came, everybody else that I knew, what I was feeling. So I guess essentially it was kind of like trying a new drug for the first time.
So explain that for a sec, because I now that's exactly why I wanted to start Addict to Athlete to that degree, Jed, was I remember the first time I got taken under the wing of Jerem and Heath and Gary, the Thurston trio there. And we did this run. And it was a basic run. But I remember finishing it and I'm like, running's for criminals, but I feel really good right now. And I got this goofy shirt and they gave me this funny little medal. Back then they didn't have medals. They just gave you the shirt, but like, it was funny because like, that's all we talked about. We talked about it for days after the first time we did the St. George Marathon in 2000. That's all Jerem and Heath and Gary and I talked about for weeks, almost months afterwards, was the experience, how crazy, what that felt like. And it gave me like such a form of belongingness. And it was such a new thing that I wanted to share that with you guys. Like if you could erase the addiction and replace it with that feeling where you could talk about this stuff and feel like, I can't wait for the next one. Like you said, almost to a certain degree, a new drug. That's what I saw in you. That's what I saw in the athletes. And so like, here we are now. And I remember you talking about, the shoes that you were gifted. And it was those small things that led to great outcomes that I was blown away by, because even that's the stuff I didn't realize. I remember running the Bonneville Shoreline Trail with Jerem months before I really kicked this off and got it going. I remember telling Jerem, I'm like, what do you think this would look like if I were to do this, if I were to put this in motion? And my whole goal there, as you probably remember, was to keep it down to 5 and 10Ks, maybe a half marathon. I remember Jerem saying, well, you'd hold them back. You've got to let them go as far as they want to go. You started with a 5K. A couple months later, you're running with me out the Pony Express, and you're out there running a marathon. We're talking within weeks of you joining in. And then now you run more ultras than I do.
Oh, it was endorphins at the time. I'm so many endorphins going on, just feeling great. Not only did I have the endorphins going on, like in my mind, but I was also noticing a big difference with me physically. I was able to look in the mirror. I had smaller pant size, smaller shirts. I looked like I was in better shape. I still was going bald, but I don't get everything.
Yeah.
Every aspect of my life was changing when I got out and I started exercising. Not only was I able to feel that new type of high, the endorphins, but I was able to visually see it this time. I'm in my appearance, in my attitude, in the way that I approached people, in the way that I held my relationships.
Right.
It's every part about it was changing around me.
For sure.
My talks when I first went into treatment was, oh yeah, I did this, I did that. It turned into war storying. Nowadays it turned into, hey, you remember that one time at the race when
race recaps.
When this happened? Yeah, it was things like that. Then look down at people's shoes. Just, how do you like those shoes? Oh, that's good. I didn't really have too good of luck with them, and that just kind of swap stories back like that.
Gave you something else to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Something else to be a part of.
And like now today, it's kind of ventured out more than just running for me, because as I'm working on becoming a personal trainer. So we sit in there and we talk about like exercises. We talk about how we're feeling. If this part of your body hurts, what do you got to do for that? In the last few months, there's been a lot of, I hate to call them old timers, but they are old timers coming back. And it's been great to see them, because even their attitudes,
original athletes, we'll call them.
Yeah, even their attitudes towards everything's kind of been changing, because they kind of got burned out on running themselves. But now that we're starting to branch out, starting to do more things, the bicycle riding, the working out, men's group. I've never been a women's group, but I got to promote them also.
Yeah.
Oh, them. Even just the service aspect that we have. It's been releasing a whole different set of endorphins and everything for us to take and enjoy.
You can see the difference between being the athlete, the player, and now the coach, because you're like, both of them have their own appeal, but then you see the other side of the coin where it's like being a coach is a very different mindset. I mean, you can still be actively engaged, but at the same point, there's something cool about being able to motivate people into wanting to find that change, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, looking back at, we'll just call it 11 years ago, because 11 years ago is about when I started. Looking back of Addict athlete then and Addict athlete now, the number one thing that has changed is our meeting location.
Pretty much, that's it.
And the group of people, yeah, it may be a whole different group of people. Me and you may be the only faces around from back then. Occasionally Ginger or Brandon. But the group of people, the attitude that people have, the relationships that we have inside of Addict Athlete, it's still there. The same purpose is still here. We all still have the same common goal. And about the one thing that I wish that we could get going just a little bit more is reaching out, showing others why we fell in love with this team.
Yeah.
Him showing others the way. Because as you said earlier, it didn't matter when we went out. We talked to the people down in Price when there's supposed to be 20 people down there, and there ended up being three.
Yeah, 3 people.
It doesn't matter if you talk to 1,000 people or if you talk to one person.
Yeah.
That whole room of 1,000 people may be looking at you, but they're not mentally engaged with what you're saying. But there may be that one person that's hanging on your words, understanding the vibe that you're putting off, and they're getting it.
Yeah, they're feeling it.
Just as long as there's that one person out there that we can reach, that one person that we can change their life, it makes it all worthwhile. You know,
I'm so glad you say that too, because, you know, if there's anyone that's been through as much as I would say I have in this team, it's you. It could be said for our athletic director, Marissa, as well. But for you and I, we've seen such amazing highs and some really heavy lows, you know. We talk about some of the athletes that we've lost. You know, I sit here and I look at Carly's blanket just right behind you with all of her jerseys and stuff that Donnell made me with all of her running jerseys and stuff. And I think, isn't it wild that we've had these heavy experiences and yet we're still here? Because I remember when we lost Carly, like I remember you were the first person I called and I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do this, but I need you to have a game face. This is what's happening. You were the person I needed to call for that. And I think I've told you that before. Like I needed to tell someone and it had to be you. Every time we've had something heavy, for some reason, I'm always like, I've got to get a hold of Jed, which is kind of a funny thing, brother, because you didn't ask for that, but you have the capacity to handle that kind of stuff with me and with the team. How have you kind of gotten through some of these heavier times of like losing some of our athletes? I mean, we lost Dawn, we lost Carly, we lost so many people. What's kept you from not just like me at one time wanting to throw in the towel and being like, you know, what's the point of all this?
Oh, I got to give credit to my wife.
We usually do.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know who my wife is. They see her come to a meeting and she doesn't walk in with me and they think it's a new person. But she's been around longer than...
She's been here a long time.
Yeah. And it's talking with her. It's listening to her feedback because she knows me better than I know myself. And even though she doesn't admit it, she's heard me talk a lot. She's heard me talk to others on the phone. And even though she's not trying to remember, she remembers my words that I told them. And she's always able to play that back right on me. And tell me, well, if you give it up right now, what are you showing everybody else? What are you showing the people that you've helped keep around?
Right.
You can't give in the towel right now because there's other people that need you here. And there's been times before.
There was one time I remember bumping into you during an all-nighter, and you were like, I don't know what's happening, but I think I need to be done. And you're like, it was funny because you were like, I need to be done. But by the end of the discussion, you were like, I just need some direction and I need some help. And it was awesome, man, because that was the first time I've ever seen you ask for assistance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I remember leaving you there, and I'm like, so I told Marissa, I'm like, I am so freaking proud of him. He's human. Like, I thought you were like subhuman, man, like superhuman, not subhuman, superhuman. And then I watched you, Jed. I watched you find help, and it was stuff that you needed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it was kind of a cool thing where I've had to do that. And, you know, when you did it, it didn't necessarily mean that we left the team. It meant that we've got to take care of us, or else what good are we to somebody else?
Yeah. It's like tonight, like I messaged you earlier, told you, yeah, I can come down, but I don't think I'll be around tonight for exercise group. It's Mac's soccer practice. It's her first soccer practice, and
You got to be there.
I'm going to miss her soccer game this weekend because we're running a marathon. And I want to be there for her. I want to be there to show her that everything that she's heard me say throughout the last 11 years is true.
Exactly.
That I'm there for my family, that I'm there for when she needs me to be. And I may not know anything about soccer, but I'm still going to cheer her on. And I'll be there tonight.
Yeah.
She's probably going to get a little bit upset and a little bit anxious, and she's going to walk over to me afterwards with a really bad attitude. But I'm still there, and I'm there to live that life nowadays.
Exactly.
And it's a beautiful thing.
That's why you don't throw in the towel. Then you miss the final round. You miss what's coming next, right?
Yeah, and with me doing that tonight, like I reached out to Justin, and maybe he replied back to me, but Justin told me that he would take over.
Yeah.
Well, he sent me a laughing emoji.
Yeah, there you go. That means he's on.
He said that he would be here tonight just for the people that need to be here. And for those of you that don't know Justin Halliday, he is one of the most genuine people that you would ever meet.
Yeah.
Can put a smile on anybody's face, and he wants to be here tonight because he knows nobody else will be here in case people need somebody to talk to that night.
It's funny you say that too, because I think Justin's heart does beat in that rhythm. But sometimes even if no one shows up, the fact that you're there is a big deal. I mean, when we first started Addict to Athlete, there was, small numbers. I remember like, what are we doing? And the thing is you've got to show up because eventually they'll come.
Yeah.
And then if one will come, someone will someone else. And you've always had that mindset too, of like, again, if we're speaking to 2 people or 200, we're going to show up. Yeah. How is that translated into your life as a father, as an employee, as a family man, as a coach? Just show up.
I don't know. Right off the get-go, right in my recovery, I realized that I lied to people a lot, and I told people I'd do something, and I never
would follow through.
Yeah, never follow through. So integrity became a big thing in my life that I needed to make sure that I did.
It's awesome, man.
Then one of the lessons that you've taught that I can say probably affected me the most was, who are you when nobody's looking?
It's a big deal, huh?
And that one got to me a lot too, because that can go right along with integrity. If you're going to say that you're going to do something, you do it.
That's right.
And I run a lot by myself. Everybody I know likes to run in the mornings, and I got to run at night. I'm not waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go run.
One thing you and I have in common, Coach.
Yeah, if I'm getting up 3 o'clock in the morning, it's because I paid money and I've got to get out there so I don't waste my money.
Yep.
And when I go running at night, nobody's there with me, and I'll tell Kylie, I'll tell somebody where I'm running.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm saying I'm running up to the bench, I'm running up to the bench. If I decide to run past that bench, I'm going down a little bit so I can get service to say I'm going past the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got to be something that I need to make sure that I'm doing. Like, I've gone out before and I've switched up my running plans and not let anybody know, and it bugged me to the point where I'd get home and I told Ty, oh, sorry, I went this way or went that way. But if something was to happen to me, nobody know where to look.
Right.
So if I say I'm going to go to the bench, I'm going to go to the bench nowadays. I'm going to do it because it makes me feel better about myself. It might get a little bit annoying for everybody else, but it makes me feel better about myself because I'm doing what I said I was going to do.
Yeah, well, that's practice, man. That's practice to like have that sense of integrity. Even if no one's watching, no one's going to care if you say, hey, I'm going to go out and grab a soda or something, but yet you go get a donut instead. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one's going to care, but you would. It's the same time when we were running that Ruby Mountain relay, and I really thought I could cheat. And I remember that, and I was up there, and I'm like, I could just completely go over the crest of this hill. No one's going to care. I could probably shave off, another like 600-700 yards, and I could just turn around as soon as this runner comes by me. And I debated until I'd reached it. And I'm like, why did I think that? You know, Jed, that sucks. I hate that mindset.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it more than anything. And I still fall into that of like a shortcut here or maybe just a pull up there. And you're right. It doesn't hurt anybody but you until you keep doing it and it becomes a part of your being. And then all of a sudden you're doing it in all your affairs and then you're back to square one.
I mean, even today, there's things that will always come up to where you may not be able to do exactly what you said at that moment. I mean, life's not perfect. If things were perfect, everything would go as scheduled.
Yeah.
There's times when I have to cancel what I was doing. I have to cancel it last minute, and I feel the guilt from it for a while. I mean, eventually it'll go away, but I don't like feeling that guilt because I'm like,
right.
Oh, what's this person thinking? What's that person thinking? And I'm one that, it's like when I show up to a meeting. I show up to a meeting early because I like to be at places early.
Right.
And if I'm going to cancel on something, I'm going to cancel on something at least 24 hours in advance. That way it gives people time to make other plans or do this, do that.
Right.
Versus if I cancel on them last minute, it's just like, hey, man, sorry, I know you're going to go do this. It's kind of dangerous, but you're going to have to do it by yourself now.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, even times I've had to leave you hanging or you left me hanging. We get it. The classic time of, the Pony Express 50. And like you had family stuff come up. And the cool part about that was you gave me plenty of time to know that I was going to do it myself. But I don't think I would have had the same experience if you'd have been there. Because again, I wanted to cheat and I wanted to get done. And I couldn't. Does that make sense? The situations were that wasn't happening and I had to finish. I love that principle about following through with what you say you're going to do. And if you have to change plans, then, make sure your substitutions come in well before so that they're ready. That's a huge in term of being an athlete in any kind of sport, but also just as a person in everyday life, just prepare yourself. Yeah. You do that quite a bit. In fact, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have even had on our radar that there's a possibility, depending on what the runoff situation is here for all the snow we've got, that we might need alternate plans for this half marathon. I'm kind of thinking we're going to be okay, but we don't know. So it's always nice to have a good backup. So you're like, I'm going to start looking. My first impression was, why? Well, duh, there's a possibility. I'm curious how you foreshadow some of that stuff. How does your mind always kind of work in the what's coming versus the here and now? Does that make sense? Like you've always kind of got a good head on your shoulder for what could happen, even if it doesn't. You play that story all the way through and look at the outcomes. That's a good tip in recovery if you can master that, where you can like foreshadow what could possibly happen. So prepare for it.
I'm going to say it's ADHD. My mind goes everywhere. No, that probably ain't it. It's just the day that they were talking about it on the radio saying, oh, yeah, if you live next to a river, this or that, you may want to start planning for flooding from here to mid-June, July. It was something like that.
Yeah, but your mind takes you to like, wait a minute, our race is right next to a river, a pretty heavy river too.
That's what I was thinking. And well, at first it's like, well, I don't have a river next to my house. Josh has one by his house, and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, oh, our half marathon.
Yeah.
Well, it just kind of popped to me that day. Like when it's talking about people and not reaching out to people, I don't know why I do that. It's just
Well, that's the thing, though, is I'm always impressed by that, too. And for listeners, one thing that you got to know about Coach Jensen is, I don't know, he has this sixth sense, this ability to, like, have these impressions of people that, like, oh, I haven't heard from this person for a while. And instead of pushing that thought out, like, you'll actively call them. And you have saved several lives that I know of that were in the act of hurting themselves when you called them off of an impression, like, hey, how's it going? Like, funny you should ask. I'll never understand how you have that versus how you allow it to happen, because everyone has impressions, Jed. Most of us push them away. Like, oh, that person doesn't want to hear from me. I don't want to disturb that person. You're like, well, I'm gonna find out what that's about. What is that? How do you do that?
Just very random times, I just start thinking about somebody, start wondering what's going on. I guess you could call it sixth sense, or I'm going to say this time in front of you that I really don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, there's times that I start wondering about people and I do push it off. There's times that I do need to push it off because, one, I get nervous because I might be putting a little bit too much on myself at that point, or
right.
Two, I'm thinking about it while I'm driving down the road, and it's just, I'm not going to pull off on the side of the road and start messaging people, but no, you start noticing when you're part of Addict Athlete, the people that are around all the time.
Yeah.
People that used to be around, because it might be a memory on Facebook or something might pop up. Mm-hmm. Or people say songs can remind you of other people.
Right.
Even a sign going down the road, it might make you think of somebody. And when I think of those people and that, sometimes that little thought might continue on. I might think about them just a little bit more than I normally would, because most thoughts can come into your mind and they can go right back out your mind.
Yeah.
Just in a blink of an eye. And typically when I start thinking about somebody just a little bit longer, wondering how people are doing, start thinking about the memories that I have with them, it's normally it's a good saying for me just to reach out to people. Sometimes I'll reach out to, say if it was Kenny, that hasn't been around for a while, I'd probably reach out to Earl a little bit first just to make sure that,
right.
See if Earl's talked to him, and 90% of the time it's just, haven't heard from him for a while. Well, do you know if anything's going on? Nope. I'll reach out and see.
Right.
So I want to find out for myself.
Right.
Because it's sad to say, but people don't reach out to other people enough, and sometimes people need somebody to reach out and just say hi.
Yeah.
To realize that they are worth it.
That's so true, man. That's part of the do it even if it's not your job mentality that we talk about, right? Like, it's not your job to contact all these people, but like, you're going to do it because that's who you are. And so I love the fact that you've been able to do that. Not shifting gears too far off of that premise, but like, there was this time, and I had this and I still hold true to this theory. I need you to understand, Jed. But I remember you and I got into several debates about this long time ago. And it was, Jed, I can never be your friend because I'm your therapist. And I remember you saying, I remember you one day telling me, I'm going to change that one day. I'm like, it'll never happen. And I always use that mindset because that's it, right? They're the therapist. Back 100 years ago when you and I were working together that way, it was interesting because, there was like, this is the line. I'm going to hold you to it, because friends don't hold friends accountable like someone in that relationship would. The coolest part about that is that's for you, it's out the window because we have like almost 20 years now of a relationship built here. The funniest part about that though, is that the relationship that you and I have, it's not just like, coach. It's even deeper than friendship, but it's also that, like, you've told me, like, Blue, knock it off. Get yourself off the pity potty for a little while. Let's do this. But there's also been that part of like, holding me accountable. And I hold you accountable. How is that different than like any other like friendship though? I mean, we have a different relationship, you and I, to a lot of degree. Does that make sense?
maybe holding people accountable. Maybe I did learn that from you because you held me accountable to a bunch of things that I did. And I mean, it's been kind of interesting, our little relationship that we have.
It's
we
funny.
have held each other accountable to a lot of different things.
Yes, we have.
I mean, I hear you talk about Max and Brock a lot because they'll throw challenges out against each other.
Do we do the same thing?
Sadly, we do the exact same.
That's why I'm running a marathon on Saturday with you.
Oh, hey, I got this wild idea.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all right. And holding each other accountable, I think honestly, the whole Addict athletes probably been holding each other accountable this whole time. Because if you told me to do something, I was going to get out. I was going to get it done because I knew you'd come back after me because, well, I don't know if it's because I knew you'd come back after me or if I remember our relationship so much that I was nervous if I didn't do something that I said I was going to do, you'd process me on it.
Yeah.
But then throughout the years, I started noticing a lot of different things about you that I was able to take and start calling you out on. And therefore, it was kind of, maybe it's just something in the back of our mind, just, dang it, I told Blue this, or I told Jed this, I better get this done. If not, then I'm going to take and get called out on it. There's nothing worse than getting called out on something.
Dude, I know, especially when you know better, huh? Yeah.
Like our little races and everything, and it's always kind of funny because I can even see you still doing it to this day, walking over to Kenny or Earl. Hey, you guys ever looked at this race?
Yep.
Well, Justin, you do it with Justin quite a bit.
Yeah.
Hey, look at this race. Justin says he'll never fall for it again, but he falls for it.
Well, that's why we're doing the Saint to Sinner now, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I already told everybody no. I know better. I know this game.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, and that's what I think is what's made this connection so good, too, is that, A, it's serious stuff, but it's also done in good fun. You know, and I think, to bridge the gap between we do more than just running, watching you now join the levels of Lycra and get on the bike again, that was pretty awesome. Having you be part of our Salt to Saint relay. I don't think you were truly ready for what you saw, what you were a part of. How was that? Like, it's kind of, because I reinvigorated you. I watched it. Like, we've done so many runs and so many events, but this was something way different than you've ever been used to. What did you think of that experience, the Salt to Saint relay?
Salt to Saint was fun. I mean, it was a whole lot of fun. You guys are all too serious, I'll tell you that much.
Buddy.
Everybody gets out there, and like the running community, marathoners, they're serious.
Yeah.
5Kers, 10Kers, they're all serious. Ultra-marathon runners, they like to get out there. They like to have fun, sit down on a rock, eat some peanuts, maybe a couple pretzels.
Yeah. Ponder life.
Yeah, ponder life and just talk. Once I started getting out there on a bike, I wanted to get out there. I wanted to do because I wanted to go out and do this race because I wanted to see what everything was about. And there's times that it hurt to walk just because I got so saddle sore.
Yeah, man.
And I felt that again yesterday. And I hate that I let that go because I was sitting on a spin bike and it was painful. But when I was getting out there, when I got to riding with everybody, I started realizing, hey, this is kind of cool. We're able to talk. Well, people are able to talk to me, and they don't like talking when they run. I don't know why.
You gotta breathe. It's hard, man.
Yeah, I was able to get to know everybody a little bit more, and I started finding out about bikes, except for I never found out that my back rim was messed up until halfway through.
Until you're in the race, yeah.
Till that point, and yeah, we got out there. We had a great little team that was going on out there that day, but it was so easy for me to see. Well, you. Wendell, everybody, Jacob, everybody just kind of started getting on this like whole little serious look because everybody had it in their minds that we needed to hit this point at a certain time.
Yeah.
If we were not hitting that point that certain time, then we have to do something in order to get there.
Speed up, catch up, go faster.
And Justin, on the other hand, he's a goofball, just like me. We show up and we throw on mullets that day without anybody noticing.
That was so funny.
And we had to start bringing people back into good humor.
Yep.
It wasn't good attitude. It was good humor. Because if you can laugh and you can smile while you're out there, it makes everything so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my first bike race. My back tire wobbling 4 or 5 inches each way. I could have let that spoil my whole run. I could look at that thinking, I'm never going to bike again. This is stupid.
Yeah.
My shoe doesn't wobble when it don't even have a spoke.
Yeah.
If my shoelace breaks, I can...
Not a lot of mechanical issues when you're running. Yeah.
I can tie it back up and I can get going. Versus that day, I mean, we were sitting out there and it's just like, oh, well, let's get this figured out and start swapping over parts from this bike to that bike. And
Frankenstein in your will. There you go.
And get going. And like even that following morning, none of us slept.
Yeah.
And you could kind of tell everybody's just kind of starting to feel a little bit down.
Uh-huh.
So we just crossed over from Utah into Arizona.
Sun's coming up. We're still riding bikes. Yeah.
It's a little bit windy out there, and things ain't working out quite like we were planning.
That sunrise when we were in Arizona, that was an interesting time.
Oh,
Everyone was tired. People were like, do I have to do this next run? It was funny too, because there was a section there that none of us wanted to ride, and it was a small section. And I remember you and me saying, well, we'll do it, but I remember you saying, let's let them figure it out and see what they want to do. I remember you saying that to me, and you're like, you remember that? You said, let's see what they want to do. And it was awesome, man, because then we had our MVP Wendell step up. He's like, well, I'll do it. I don't think Wendell really wanted to, but he did, and it was kind of a cool thing because like I was going to go in there and solve it, but you're like, let's let them figure it out and see what they come up with.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of fun at that point. I actually think Wendell walked over, grabbed a mullet, threw on his head at that point.
Yeah, he did.
I think he went through Colorado City wearing a mullet, wearing spandex of all things, on a bicycle, and we got through it. We got done. We made it to a gas station. We were all having fun there. And honestly, I think that little strip, I think Arizona was probably the most depressing point of our whole trip for us. It wasn't because we were getting ready to go see Colorado City. It was just because everybody was worn out. Everybody was tired.
Uh-huh. All the good, exciting stuff is now gone. This is the bare bones of the race now, yeah.
And after we got out of Colorado City, after Wendell stepped up and said, no, we're going to do this, I'll ride it. Mm-hmm. Jacob kind of jumped on board right then, and everybody took off. Everybody started riding.
Second wind.
Got out there.
Yep.
Justin jumped on his bike, and Jacob sat right there next to him the whole time. They took off. I barely had enough time to get down and get my bike ready to take off through Hurricane all the way down.
You had a bugger of a section 2 at the end there, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that.
And I was in my mind at the time, I was thinking, as soon as I get done with this, I'm just going to keep going.
I'm not going to stop.
Up this hill, down that hill, up this hill, down that hill. Still feeling a little bit. Jacob jumps out there, and Jacob takes off with me. Mm-hmm. It's the very last leg. Jacob, you take off, go.
Okay,
call these guys. They're going to come get me. I'm done. And it was at that point, I wanted to be there. I wanted to know what it felt like going through the finish line. Myself that day, being able to know that I pushed myself as hard as I did.
Yeah.
I was just tired. There's other finish lines for me to go through that day. I did go through the finish line at like barely rolling through.
Well, some kid on a scooter almost wiped you out too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, at the very, very end, he was out there on a scooter about wiped you out.
Yeah, that bike riding, I mean, it's a whole different experience for us. Well, for me, but it's one I'm looking forward to doing. My niece was actually talking to me yesterday saying that she wants to try bike riding, so.
Let's go. See, so that's it, right? That's kind of that, again, it's that moving from player to coach, and still being a part of it, but like seeing the new people jump in, like watching Justin. That's why it was so cool for me to watch you guys. I watched you and Justin and Wendell and all these folks that have been brand new to the sport. I remember thinking, this is the coolest freaking thing, watching all you guys do this for the first time. Because I remember what it was like for my first time, like the apprehension, the nerves. I've done that race 5 or 6 times now, but it was so cool to see the new versions of what's to come with you guys. It was one of the coolest things. Cold up there, though. Remember that? It got cold up there.
I don't know if I'd say too much of new versions, more like reworked over versions.
It's awesome, man. Now we'll alternate into amazing swimmers, and we can do a triathlon. We got the running down, we got the biking. Maybe we can get into a pool one day.
I'll pass on that part.
Coach, it's been a blast. We got to have you on here again. It shouldn't be in there 5 years, but what do you tell all these new athletes out there, these new folks that don't know that there's more than just 12 steps out there? There's more than just sitting in a circle of therapy. What do you tell to those guys about like how important movement is and just getting out of your comfort zone?
Comfort zone, if you're nervous about coming here, maybe you ought to come here because you need to get out of your comfort zone in order to grow. Getting out, getting active, like we were discussing earlier, has a lot to do with your endorphins, everything that's going on there. Come here. Let us help you. Let us guide you. Let us show you. One of the number one things that I learned in recovery is there's a thing called the ripple effect. It's not only inside of a pond or a puddle or anything, but come here. Be part of that ripple effect. One person will set off that ripple inside of you, and you're able to set it off to somebody else and just keep riding that wave as long as you can.
I like that.
Don't be afraid to jump in with both feet. If you jump in with both feet, you get going and you feel like you need to step back a little bit. Don't step back by yourself. Don't isolate. Step back, get your feet grounded again, and start approaching it from there. And I don't know, I wish I could explain to everybody in detail the reason why I've stayed with Addict Athlete for 11 years. I wish that I could just take a piece of that feeling and grant to everybody so everybody could feel it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can't explain what Addict Athlete is. You have to tell people to come and see it for themselves. And don't be discouraged if you show up here and you see everybody talking and people didn't make it over to talk with you right then. There's always new people, and there's people that need to get out there and start talking. And some people inside of our group, they're shy too. They don't dare to approach people that much, and just walk over, stand next to one of their groups, kind of get to know what they're talking about a little bit, and maybe jump in from there. Yeah. Introduce yourself, because I guarantee their story is very similar to yours. You just have to wait and find out.
We always start our meetings by asking if anyone's new and how they heard about us. That's your window to say, kind of new, just want to feel out, feel the temperature of the water here. That's what it's for, right?
The number one thing to do right after the meeting, jump in and start exercising with everybody.
Exactly. Don't leave.
You're going to get to know everybody just a little bit more when they're exercising.
You are absolutely right. Listeners, you've been well fed today. Coach Jensen, far too long, brother, but, we walk past the studio 5 times a week. It's about time we got you in here. Let's not make it the last time. I know that you're busy and whatnot, but hey, listen, keep your eyes on the socials. You'll see Jed and I as we try to suffer through John's marathon this weekend. My last one was last month, 13 miles. So we'll be the guys at the back, just kind of like, partying like Josh and I's podcast.
Nobody's going to know we're in the back because it's a 3 mile, would you call that a loop?
Is it a loop?
Back and
out and
forth.
back? Yeah.
So you run out 1.3 miles, or like 1.43, something like that. Then you turn around and run back past the start line. And then you run down past the start line another 1.5 miles. Then you turn back around. Then you.
Do we have to do math?
No, they'll keep track of it for us.
Okay, good. I'm like, oh, geez.
So practically it's a 3 mile back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
And just do that like 7 or 8 times, huh?
Yep.
Well, there you go.
We'll see the same course a lot. People won't even know that we're the very back people.
Yeah. Maybe I like the sound of that. But nonetheless, check out the website, addictoathlete.org, for more information. Until next time, athletes, continue to turn your mess into a message.
We'd like to thank our Patreon subscribers. The Superfans, Karen Hardy, Steve Riggs, Tracy Whitby, Jerem Thurston, Tara Butson, Holly Davies, Scott Foster, Brett Frew, Chris Williams, Sensei KP Brown, Patrick Forsyth, Brock Ellerman, and Christy Case. We'd like to thank our rookie fans, Sione and Mary Inuk, Sherry Polson, Earl Dyer, and Wendell Wood. Our pro levels, Andrew Baird and Gary Thurston, and our champion level subscribers, the Robinson family, and Ron and Dee Loesch. Thank you, and please check out patreon.com/AddictTOAthlete. Join our Patreon program for exclusive content and exclusive swag from Addict to Athlete. Patreon.com/AddictToAthlete.